This means that in terms of markets, we've had 18 months of incredibly good results. You can make money by throwing a dark board blind and folding. That's great. Right now is a great time for business because interest rates are going down and more money is coming into the market. Some of these goods will likely keep going up until around the middle of 2026 because inflation starts to rise later in the cycle. That means we have a great time before returns. Remember to take a step back. Everything you read that is noise. The rate is 5.5%. The main CPI number is 2.5%. Trueflation is at 1%, and I believe it is building chain link. Rates are 300 basis points too high. They're going to drop a lot. It will feel a lot better for everyone. People are going to spend again. Companies are making more money. It will feel great for everyone. The US Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 50 basis points on Wednesday. This was the first time they had done this since March 2020. Before the decision, economists had different ideas about whether the Fed would cut rates by 25 or 50 basis points. Most thought it would be 25 basis points. The Federal Open Market Committee said that lowering the federal funds rate to a goal range of 4.75% to 5% was due to progress made on inflation and balance risks. The committee also made it clear that it will keep looking at economic figures and risks before making any more changes. Investors, traders, and fund managers around the world have been closely watching since 2022, when the central bank started raising rates quickly. This rate cut has been eagerly expected by markets around the world. Raoul, founder and CEO of Rio Vision, says that this move shows a positive change in the world liquidity situation. Following the Fed's bigger than expected rate cut before the November elections, Powell thinks that asset prices will go up by a large amount. Powell, a well-known macro analyst and former Goldman Sachs executive, thinks that the influx of cash will help tech stocks and cryptocurrencies the most, since both have done better than the Fed's balance sheet. He thinks that by the end of 2025, crypto prices will have quadrupled, going from just over $2 trillion to between $10 trillion and $15 trillion. By 2030, he thinks they will have gone up even more, to $50 trillion to $100 trillion. Powell talked about these ideas in a recent informal chat at the Enterprise Cayman conference, where he also talked about the state of global markets and his hopes for the future. A long-term secular trend, which is how things change over time, the business cycle, and liquidity are all things I use to look at markets. As I've learned more about how liquidity has become almost the only thing that drives yields, I've found that my framework has changed over the years. Then you get some extra money back for long-term trends. When you break down everything I mean, we all know that the business cycle goes up and down. If you want to understand the business cycle, you can use the ISM. We've reached the point in the business cycle where things should start to get better for the economy. The warnings about a slowdown and other things were made in 2022. We should see growth in the coming years, and rates are going down at the same time. Through my work over the years, I've discovered something I call the Everything Code. Even though the title sounds a little proud, it was really shocking. In 2008, there was a global debt fix. I think I was one of the first people in the world to learn about it. In a debt jubilee, you don't pay any of your bills back. In this case, you had an interest rate jubilee. After that, every important government and central bank in the world agreed not to pay interest. There is only one game. Everything else doesn't matter. This debt cycle shows that every asset class, every country, and every central bank are all very closely linked to each other. What's with all this debt? In 2008, all interest rates were set to zero, and all government bills were restructured with terms that changed from 3 to 5 years. It's great that you have a 4-year rotation. Plus, the same thing happened after World War II in the 1950s when we had the same problem and did the same thing. And back then, we didn't have zero interest rates. Instead, we had yield curve control. But they do the same thing over and over again. There is debt that needs to be paid off this year and next year. The US alone has $10 to $11 trillion in debt that needs to be paid off. They create money that can be used right away. It is more than just the bank sheets. The system has all the capital you could want. They know the game and work together to make it work. It's being done now. So cash flow is what drives it. This is the magic thing that happens when you start to change markets. The SP 500 hasn't gone up or down since 2008-9 because it fell in 2008. This is because Fed net liquidity is the best way to measure liquidity in the US. It hasn't led anywhere and has almost no real return. Gold is the same. Real estate is different because you can borrow money to buy it. But land that hasn't been raised doesn't go anywhere. In fact, only two items have gone somewhere else. There are only two things in the world that do better than money going down in value. Debasement is when you print too much money to pay off your own bills, like using a credit card to pay off a credit card. Tech and crypto are the only things that matter. Robopo says that after several rate cuts from the Federal Reserve and other central banks, we are now entering what he calls a time of more cowbell. This means that a lot of money will be printed to keep the global financial system from collapsing. Pal thinks that this new money will go straight into markets, especially the Bitcoin market, which is known for being very volatile. After the rate cut on Wednesday, Bitcoin showed this kind of instability. As soon as the news came out, the price went from a 24-hour low of $59,212 to a high of $61,500. Powell thinks that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies will have even more up and down price changes when central banks start printing a lot of money, which could happen in 2025. During this time, he thinks Bitcoin will gain thousands of dollars in value in a single day. Powell calls this time period the banana zone. It's the part of every crypto bull market where prices go through the roof and seem impossible to believe, or as he puts it, go crazy. Powell says that we are only just hitting the banana zone and that prices will go through a lot more wild swings. How did we get to where we are now? Well, cash is what drives the business cycle. It hit its lowest point at the same time as the Nasdaq and crypto in October, November, and December 2022. It has been going up, as have those markets. They leave every month because they follow wealth. Most other measures like the Russell 2000, oil prices, and copper tend to be based on the current business cycle, which is now and is just starting to get better. You can see that metals are still at all-time lows but are starting to rise again. You can also see that the Russell 2000 and the equally weighted SP are now at all-time highs. In terms of markets, we've probably had 18 months of amazingly good results. You can make money by throwing a dartboard blind and folding. That's great. The business cycle is going up, interest rates are going down, and there is a lot of money coming into the market. I think it will be 15 months from now. 15, and some of these lag prices of goods will likely keep going up until around the middle of 2026 when inflation starts to set in. We can all call ourselves smart because we have a great time ahead of returns. Remember to take a step back. Rates are at 5.5% for everything you read. The main CPI number is 2.5%. Rates are 300 basis points too high. They are going to drop a lot. It will feel a lot better for everyone. People are going to spend again. Companies are making more money. It will feel great for everyone. It will happen again and again. 2026, the circle starts to slow down again. Then we start the debt refinancing process all over again.